Hey fellas, how you doing? It's Johnny. I thought in this video, I thought I'd tell my story. I know I've told my story a lot of times and I've repeated some of the things again and again, but I can never tell my story too much, because I think a lot of people can benefit from hearing from my story. And it also helps me as well when I share my story. It psychologically makes me feel good. It just makes me feel that it's just metaphorically like taking a shower, feeling clean, but doing that, you know, spiritually clean, it just makes me feel better. It's part of the work and I really enjoy it. So one of the things that I've been meditating on this week is distrust. Is why for so many years I couldn't trust people, and where all my fears, where did all these fears come from? How did this first start, and how did this finally end? So a lot of the guys I work with, or some of you might be watching now who've worked with me, or you've just been following me through YouTube, you've also mentioned to me that you struggle with trusting people. And so I'm going to go back in time. I'm going to do the best I can to tell my story, bearing in mind there's a lot that's happened. I'm 33 now, so I have to go back in time. Of course I've got a recollection of it, but there's lots of details that sometimes I forget, and they all make sense. They all explain it. Never easy to talk about this. I was getting a lot of resistance initially, a lot of voices in my head. There's always this feeling of, oh, I shouldn't really say this, but honesty is the best policy. As young as I can remember, I can't remember the age, it could be 10, it could be 11, I don't remember the exact age. All I remember is growing up, being younger, being born, and being happy, and playing with the other kids, and loving toys, and loving all the things that boys enjoy, and being interested in girls. That became apparent to me really quick. But then something changed, and I don't remember the exact age. It was around, I'm trying to remember my memory, I just can't seem to remember. It was about, I would say, maybe, it's so hard to remember, about 11, 12, 13. My dad started to abuse me growing up. My dad was very abusive. It scared me. I was frightened of him. And I was confused. To be frightened of my dad, because I felt like I was betraying him. That doesn't make sense. If you've been abused, it makes sense. I felt like I was betraying him, and I felt like I was betraying myself. And then I felt like I was betraying my family. So he was abusive towards me. He used to call me vicious names. He used to, sorry my language, you say to me, you stupid cunt, you're mummy's boy, don't speak stupid, don't talk stupid. I couldn't be myself around my dad. As a matter, I couldn't speak when he was in the room. I was petrified of him. I couldn't look at him in the eye. I couldn't look at him. He'd give me dirty looks. He'd look at me like he hated me, look at me with resentment. So I couldn't look at him in the eye. I physically couldn't breathe when he was in the room. I couldn't speak. I couldn't be myself. And I had to keep him happy. I had to please him. I had to stop him from losing his temper. And he hit me many times. He used to hit me all the time. He used to lay into me. And yeah, the beatings weren't good. I didn't enjoy the beatings, they frightened me, but the verbal abuse was worst. So after he'd be abusing me and hitting me, he'd make faces, make funny faces, you know, faces of disgust. He'd say, oh, look at you, mummy's boy, you're soft. You keep calling me soft. So I thought I was a bad person. Wrong, because I actually idolised my dad growing up. I actually loved the guy, but I was frightened of him. I couldn't understand why this abuse was taking place. I kept thinking, I must have done something to trigger this off. I must have said something wrong. I must have acted out of unaccordingly. So I just, as I said, I can't, sorry, this wind's blowing my hair all over the place. I can't remember the first time the abuse started out. All I remember, it had started from a very young age, and he'd been doing it all my life. It had continued. He just treated me like a piece of shit. He treated me like this for years growing up. Now, it didn't stop there. I was afraid of my mum as well. I didn't trust my mum. I loved my mum, but I didn't trust her because I was angry that my mum allowed him to do this to me. My mum stood and watched him do this. But my mum was frightened of him. The whole family was. So when my mum came in the room, I couldn't be myself as well. I could be more myself with my mum, and I could be more myself with people. But my dad, he fucked me up growing up. He damaged me growing up. So I had social anxiety. I couldn't speak around people. I couldn't be myself. I thought people didn't like me, and I thought when I spoke I sounded like a mummy's boy, I sounded stupid. So I actually believed everything he said. And this is where it gets really confusing. It was confusing for me. And then some days it'd be really nice. It'd act as if it didn't happen. He'd do all that abuse, start laying into me, start hitting me, shouting in my face. When he was shouting, spit was coming out. He was screaming at me, kicking me. And this is what really damaged me more as well and embarrassed me, made me ashamed. I would wet myself. I'd piss all down my trousers because I was so frightened. And my mum would be like screaming at him to get him off. And then after that I just wanted to kill myself because the embarrassment, the shame, feeling belittled, feeling dominated, just feeling raped, feeling humiliated. That's how I felt. I couldn't articulate that when I was younger, but that you know, you understand how you feel emotionally. And I just was in shock most of the time. I couldn't speak, I couldn't argue back. A few times I tried to and he went mad. I thought he was going to kill me. A few times I actually thought he was going to kill me, and I wanted to get the police. I was too frightened to call the police on him. I thought he'd kill me, and I didn't want to betray him, so I felt guilty. I couldn't tell anyone because he's my dad, and I looked up to him as well. Because obviously he was good as well. But I knew this wasn't right. And we wasn't close as a family. It was all dysfunctional, and I knew it for years. I lived a lie, played this game with him. It wasn't myself. I wouldn't mask. I wasn't myself with my mum. I didn't trust my mum. I couldn't. What would happen? I'll tell you what would happen to me. And this was a pattern of the relationship with my dad. When I would be myself, like how I'm being now, and I'd be vulnerable, just normal and open and loving, I'd enjoy it, but I would feel dirty after. I'd feel disgusted with myself. So I would regret being honest with people. Anytime I was honest, because my fear was that people, they will betray me, they're gonna cheat me. They are gonna, I suppose I had a fear of abandonment. So I had a conflict, and this developed a mental illness, which is social anxiety disorder, where I was always in my head when I was around people socialising. I wasn't there, I wasn't present. I couldn't handle that. I just couldn't deal with it. I just couldn't deal with socialising with people, and I just wanted to speak up. I just wanted to say to my dad, this is not right. And I just waited for a day to come when I could stand up to him and put a stop to this, because this relationship with my dad, it ruined my life. It ruined my life in every situation, because after he treated me like this, I hated him, and I hated myself, and I hated people, and that's really where my social anxiety come from. So he bullied me all my life growing up, and there were periods where he got better, where he stopped and he was very nice and he did good things to me. I'm not dismissing that, a lot of good things, but it just didn't make it right. The way he treated me, it didn't add up. And I remember thinking, when I meet other people, I see how they behave, think, he's not normal. There's obviously something wrong with him. He's ill himself. He has psychological problems. Because I'd see how other people were. I'd go to friends' houses and their families didn't behave like that. And I knew my mum was frightened, and I knew my dad was scared as well, because bullies are scared. So I knew that he was scared of his own, he was scared of himself, he didn't trust himself. And my whole family, we lived in fear, we were scared. I could sense it when he'd come in the room, my mum would change her tonality. It was just this game playing for years, this game. And it made me so depressed, it made me hate myself so much, it made me so sick and tired of playing this dishonest game. I wanted to commit suicide. But then I'd get a voice saying to me, you're soft, you can't handle life. So I had all this conflict. But what I did was, for many years, I wanted approval, I wanted my dad's approval, and I suppose I wanted the approval of other people. I wanted to prove to myself that I was a man. So at the time, my dad had taught me and said to me, being a man is don't cry, don't be a mummy's boy. A mummy's boy is a term for don't be soft, so don't talk soft. So I pretty much couldn't speak because everything I said felt soft. So the only things I'd really speak about was the football. I didn't want to talk about football, to be honest. I'd have to talk about macho things, about beating someone up, getting the better of someone. So it ruined my personality. So when I went to school, I didn't trust men. I didn't trust people, obviously, but especially with men. And I was always frightened. I always had this anxiety, this paranoia. Every time I looked at people, everyone I looked at, I just felt hate for people. It's a horrible, horrible place to be at, especially when I knew that wasn't my true self. And it would always happen to me. I'd get bullied. I got bullied in school growing up, in primary school. This would always be the pattern. I'd get bullied, people would start on me because I couldn't speak. I could not speak out loud when people were around. I had so much anxiety. I would stutter and I'd feel embarrassed, so I wouldn't speak. I didn't want to be anxious. My biggest fear was, this went beyond probably the fear of my dad. My biggest fear was being caught out. I just had this vicious, demonic internal voice that would say to me, you're going to be caught out by people. Everyone is going to catch you out, and if they catch you out, you're pretty much dead. I suppose psychologically that meant abandonment. And I used to think to myself, well, what exactly can I be caught out for? And I understand it now from years of working on myself and healing. I was afraid to tell the truth about my dad. That's what I was worried about being caught out by. So these demons, these voices, were demons that my dad had put on me. Whether he consciously meant it or not, but unconsciously it created a story. It created a lot of psychological dissonance. And I had this bullying going on for many years, this internal voice. So when I was around people socialising, that voice would be playing in the back saying, if they were to find out about you or catch you out. So it's really about being caught out for how ashamed I was about how my dad had treated me, and how ashamed I was about myself, that I didn't like myself. And really the fact that I didn't like other people, not because I truly didn't like them, because I couldn't trust anyone. So that's really my biggest fear. That's what kept me in a mental prison for years. And it made me, I can't even explain to you how much I hated people. I just wanted to hurt them because I'd been hurt so much growing up. And interestingly enough, I always got picked on. And aside of that, when my dad wasn't in the room, and there was only one person I actually trusted growing up, one person only, my nan, is the only person in the whole world that I trusted. I didn't trust any of my family members, and I felt awful, but that's the truth. Didn't trust any of them. Didn't trust my mum, didn't trust my dad, all family members. I only trusted my nan because my nan was so kind. My nan, obviously, my nan didn't beat me. She was lovely to me. And my nan knew about my dad. I told her. She said to me, you know, you've got to talk to him. I never had the courage to do it. I didn't want to set him off, and I also didn't want to hurt him. Obviously, I've got feelings, so I didn't want to hurt him. I knew he wasn't well. I knew that he had psychological problems, and I couldn't disagree with him. If he was in a conversation and was talking about something and it was factual and I knew that I was right, I could not disagree because he'd start screaming and shouting and threatening and being abusive. So the abuse was in every way. Physical abuse, hitting, kicking, throwing stuff, spitting, and verbal abuse, comments, and also you know, some communication, looking at me, staring at me, intimidation, all these type of bullying tactics that he did. And as I said, it transferred onto the relationship with my mum. felt rage when I was around. I felt rage being around people. The only person I didn't feel rage around was being around my nan. That's why I was really close with my nan. To be honest, I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for my nan. My nan saved my life. So this abuse from my dad made me suicidal. It gave me severe depression. I even remember when I had depression, I wouldn't admit it. I wouldn't tell anyone. Didn't want to be weak. I wouldn't get help. I would never admit it. If I would, all this I'm saying now, I would never admit it. When people said to me, "How are you?" I may complain, but I would just bottle everything up. So of course, when I was around men, I didn't show weakness. I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't be vulnerable. It would have to take a lot of trusting with a particular friend to be vulnerable. And eventually, obviously, I was lucky. I did have a lot of relationships growing up where I could be open, but I still had that story at the back that kept saying, you're going to be caught out one day. You're going to be caught out for what's happened, what you've done. So it was actually, I blame myself for what my dad did to me. I blame myself. It's my fault. I must have done something. I was a mistake. But as I've gotten older and matured, I realised, no, actually it's not. It wasn't my fault. It was wrong what he did, because my nan didn't treat me like that, and obviously other people didn't treat me like that. So, of course, I understand later on now from having help. I had a mental illness, and I projected this when I was in school and socialising, and I attracted, with my nervousness, bullies. So the bullying started in school. It didn't last too long. And I'm not bragging when I say this, after age 15, because I got bullied in secondary school, I got called names because I was really shy, I went mental, I went mad. I became so violent, and I don't really like talking in this way, but I just started battering people. I just started knocking men out, I just started kicking the shit out of men. So I'd get trouble, I'd wait for it, and knock people out. And I'd feel good doing it. At the time, I felt good doing it. Of course, after, I felt awful. But I had so much anger in me towards my dad. I had so much anger towards how he made me feel, that when a bully came along and started on me, it was just like morning breakfast. I was just waiting for it. It was like morning breakfast. So I wasn't a bully in the sense, I would never go up to someone and just start on them for no reason. I didn't have the heart to do that. I was actually a very sensitive guy. I was actually a very nice guy, really emotional, really sensitive. And that's one of the reasons why I think my dad bullied me. I think there was a lot of jealousy. He had a lot of jealousy, a lot of insecurity, and I could see that from a young age. I could just tell. And then, of course, all those behaviours I didn't like in my dad, I became like that. I was incredibly jealous of people. That's why I really felt I had a lot of social anxiety. I couldn't be around people, especially people that were happy, doing well. It made me feel worthless. It made me feel like a lowlife. So for years, I was carrying this, and I got a bit better growing up. I learned to manage it and hide it, but I always knew people could see it, and that used to bother me. They could tell, my family could tell, and it trashed my confidence. I couldn't get a job. I couldn't get a girlfriend. I thought women didn't like me. I thought I was ugly. I thought I wasn't attractive. It just really scarred me. I felt dirty. I felt like I'd been raped. I felt dirty, even though I wasn't raped, but I felt all those feelings. I felt just humiliated. I couldn't get these feelings off. And the fighting was a temporary outlet to get this anger out, but it never went away. And what happened was, as I grew up, and this hurt me as well, people were frightened of me. Eventually, like, my friends were scared of me. I could tell when I was in the room. People didn't treat me nice, friends didn't treat me nice, and I understand that, because I wasn't treating people nice. As I was scared. I didn't have to, I couldn't be nice too long. So I had multiple personality disorder. I understand that now from studying psychology and being a teacher. I kept changing. So when I'd be nice, I'd feel good, and I'd regret being nice, because even when my dad was still bullying me. If I was nice to a kid at school or nice to someone, I'd be thinking, oh, if my dad's seen that, he's going to say I'm soft. I better be tough. So my whole persona was false. It was fake. Growing up, I had to act. So I acted tough, and of course I attracted trouble, and I just couldn't be myself. I was a nice guy, I wasn't a violent person, so I just couldn't stop it. As the years went by, I tried everything. I tried to get this, I tried everything. I tried to I tried to people please my dad for validation, to stop it. I tried to reason with him, and that worked for a little bit, and then I just felt like I felt like a beggar. I felt like I was begging my own dad for love, and he didn't. I don't even think he loved me. I didn't think my mum loved me. I was paranoid. So when people complimented me, I didn't believe it. As I said, the only person that I believed, and I reckon this kept me alive, and I really mean this, was my nan, because I genuinely felt that she loved me, and I had a great relationship with her all throughout. My nan passed away. I love my nan to bits. She passed away a few years ago. I can't even thank my nan enough. There's not even words I can say what the woman done for me. I'm not even going to say it, I don't want to spoil it. My nan knows that already, and anyone who knows me very well would know that. I'm not even going to waste words. I love the woman to bits. She saved my life. I wouldn't be otherwise, because I would have just killed myself. So I couldn't talk open around my dad. There was no feelings. There was not. We didn't have intimacy. There wasn't hugs. We didn't kiss. There wasn't a hug. I didn't have that. I didn't have that growing up. I had it with my mum. But it didn't feel right. It didn't feel right. My mum would give me a hug and a kiss. I would feel I don't deserve it. It didn't feel good. So I didn't like people touching me. I didn't like people putting their hands near me. I didn't like hugs. I didn't like people saying good things about me. Do you know what I felt more comfortable with? I felt more comfortable with people being aggressive towards me, because I trusted that. So and I know this came from my dad, because when he was nice, I didn't trust him. Because I was just thinking, this is not the real guy. He's abusive. He hates me. He's just doing this. It's just an act. So I didn't trust my dad. I didn't trust my mum. I didn't trust my family. Of course, I didn't trust me. I didn't trust my emotions. I didn't know if I was going to go to a social gathering, how I'm going to be. Sometimes I was nice. Sometimes I could flip. I could flip out. I knew I had problems. It was hard to admit it growing up. I didn't want to admit that, and that's classic denial and blame. I blamed other people for my anxiety. I said it's people. It was me. It was my reaction towards my dad. It took me many years to forgive myself. So I developed low self-esteem, and I had no confidence. I had no confidence because it was taken away from me from my dad growing up, and I was fine before the abuse. And it just it's hard to find words when you've been through this and you feel like this, because you want to fix it. You want to fix it. You want to pretend that it doesn't exist, because I kind of felt like this can't be going on. Maybe I'm just drunk. Maybe I'm being a victim. Maybe I'm looking for sympathy. My dad would use that against me as well. If I try to argue back, he'd say, "Oh, you're mummy's boy, looking for sympathy." So I thought, yeah, I'm probably looking for sympathy. So I bottled it up and I continued. And for a couple of years, it went away. It actually went away. And I actually became numb to it. And my relationship with my dad, to be fair, it actually started to get better. And he actually became nicer. And I've got to give him credit. The actual physical abuse stopped. So he stopped hitting me when I got into my early 20s, because to be honest, he couldn't do it. I was a grown man. I could fight back, and he knew that as well. But I didn't want to fight with my dad. I didn't want to hurt my dad. He's my own dad. I still loved him, but I had a lot of anger towards him. But the verbal abuse and the subtle abuse still continued. He didn't respect me when I was speaking. He'd just ignore me or keep cutting me off. He would just keep telling me about things that he wanted to say. So I didn't enjoy conversations with him. And that projected in my early 20s onto my social interactions. I was irritable. If I was in a conversation with someone and they were speaking to me, even if they were being nice, it just made me angry. It just set me off. It triggered off